Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to crochet this top, which can be worn two ways, and it is very easy, beginner friendly. So you're going to need some stitch markers, and I'm using a 3mm hook because I'm going to be using the Cotton Kings super fine 100% cotton yarn, and you'll need two colors. So let's start off with our first color by making a slip knot. We're going to be making a double crochet foundation row, so chain 3, and then what you want to do is wrap your yarn around your hook and insert your hook into that back bump of the very first chain that we made, and then you want to pull your yarn through that loop and then wrap your yarn around and pull through the first loop on your hook and then wrap your yarn around, pull through 2 loops, wrap your yarn around, pull through 2 loops. And that counts as our first double crochet. So now to continue, wrap your yarn around your hook, and we're going to go into that little V that we created at the bottom of our first stitch. So go ahead and insert your hook in there. It might be a little bit tight, so just wiggle it. And then you're going to wrap your yarn around, pull through the loop, and basically what we're going to be doing is pulling our yarn through the first loop and then working like a normal double crochet. So wrap your yarn around, go through 2 loops, wrap your yarn around, go through 2 loops. Then repeat that by wrapping your yarn around your hook, inserting in that bottom V, and then pull your yarn through the first loop, and then pull your yarn through 2 loops, pull your yarn through 2 loops. And that is how we're going to create our double crochet foundation row. And if this is too difficult, you can do a chain and then just do double crochets in the chain. However, this way it's just easier to know exactly how much to do. So I ended up doing a total of 112 double crochets, and this is going to be around my neck, but don't do it so that it's too tight. Do it so it fits sort of like a t-shirt neckline. What you want to do now is divide your total number of stitches by 4 and then divide that number that you have. So for me, 112 divided by 4 is 28. Divide that number, so for me 28, by 2, and it's going to be 14 for me. So I will place my first stitch marker on the 14th stitch, and then from that stitch marker I will count 28 and place my next stitch marker, and then I'll count 28 again and place my stitch marker, count 28 again, place my stitch marker, and then I should be left with 14 stitches. So go ahead and place your stitch markers. You should have a total of 4 stitch markers on there, and I will meet you back for the next row. To start row 2, we're going to chain 3, and this is not going to count as a double crochet. So we're going to do a double crochet in the very first stitch, and then we're going to place a double crochet into every stitch until we reach our first stitch marker. So do that, and I will see you at the first stitch marker. So go ahead and remove your stitch marker, and what we're going to do is place a double crochet in that stitch. Then we're going to chain 1 and place another double crochet in the same stitch, and that is how we're going to increase in every stitch marker. So put your stitch marker back into the middle of those stitches, and continue now to place 1 double crochet into each stitch until you get to your next stitch marker. So we're going to do the same thing and remove our stitch marker and place one double crochet into that stitch, chain one and place a double crochet into the same stitch, and then put your stitch marker back into that chain space that you made. And then we're going to do one double crochet in each stitch until we get to the next stitch marker, and repeat doing that same increase. So you want to do that in every single stitch that we have a stitch marker, and one double crochet in each normal stitch. So now I am at the end of my row and I'm going to place a double crochet in the last stitch, and now we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. So now you can sort of see where that increase is going to be, which is going to form the yoke of our top. So put your hook back in the loop and we're going to place a double crochet into that very first stitch, and then just place one double crochet into each stitch until we reach the stitch marker. So I'm at the double crochet that I placed in that previous row stitch, and I'm going to work a normal double crochet in there. And now where we've placed our stitch marker in that chain space we made, we're going to do the same thing as the previous row by doing a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in that chain space. And that is what we're going to do essentially for every single row in the chain space. So that's what it's going to look like. And now you can put your stitch marker back there and continue to now double crochet into that next double crochet stitch, and then double crochet in every single stitch until you get to your next stitch marker. And when you get to your next stitch marker, you're going to repeat doing a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So continue that and I will meet you at the end. Place a double crochet in the last stitch, but because we are not counting our chain 3 as a stitch, do not put a double crochet in that chain. So chain 3 and turn your work. So now you can start to see where your top is going to increase in all those stitch marked areas. And for every row now until the next step, we're going to continue doing double crochets, and then in the stitch marker space, a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So repeat that until you have a good amount of length, and I'll show you in the next clip what that's going to look like. So here I have a total of 16 rows where I just repeated the exact same process, and you can start to see the shape of our yoke, and you want to try and drape it over your shoulders, and you want the corners where the stitch markers to be sort of where your armpits are. So I'll show you what that looks like. To start the next row, we're going to chain 3 and put a double crochet in the very first stitch, and then we're going to place one double crochet in each stitch until we get to our first stitch marker. So now you want to take your stitch marker out, and we're going to place one double crochet into that chain space, and what we're going to do now is actually make a chain and connect it to the other stitch marker chain space. So I ended up chaining 25, and the best way to do this to figure out how long you want your chain to be is to maybe start with 25 like me and attach it to the other side and then try it on. It's kind of hard to guess how long you want it to be. It's going to be different for everyone. So I'll show you what that looks like. But once you have your chain, you're just going to double crochet into that next chain space where we have our stitch marker. This chain is going to be underneath our armpit, and what we're going to do next now is double crochet in the very next stitch, and we're going to place one double crochet into every stitch until we get to our next stitch marker. We're going to repeat the process, so make your double crochet in the stitch before, take your stitch marker out and place a double crochet into that chain space, and then you want to chain the same number you chained previously. So for me, I'm going to do 25 chains, and then I'm going to connect that chain to the other side where my stitch marker is and do a double crochet into that chain space. So it's exactly like we did on the other two stitch marked spaces. And then we're going to place one double crochet into every stitch until we get to the end of our row. By creating these chains and connecting them, we are setting ourselves up for the length of our top, and this is what it will look like. To start our next row, we're going to start with a chain 3 as usual, and we're going to place a double crochet into the very first stitch, and then we're going to double crochet into every stitch until we get to our chain. Once you get to your chain, we're going to place a double crochet into each chain, and you want to put your double crochet into that little back bump of our chain, and this just makes it look a lot neater. I like to do the back bump and place a double crochet into each chain. So for me, I have 25 chains, so I'll have a total of 25 double crochets. So I've finished doing a double crochet in all my chains, and now I'm going to place a double crochet into that next double crochet stitch and just continue placing one double crochet into each stitch until we get to the next chain. And when we get to the next chain, we're going to do the exact same thing. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's just double crocheting in every stitch, every chain for this entire row. Once you finish your row, this is what it's going to look like. It's just one row of double crochet, and we will no longer need to use our stitch markers. So from now on, it's going to be very easy. All we're going to do is chain 3, double crochet in the first stitch, and double crochet into every single stitch, and we're going to do as many rows as we want for our length to our waist. So I like to try it on once I have that first row of double crochets on my chain, so I can see what it's really going to feel like once I'm wearing it. And now you can decide if you want to go back, add more chains, or take chains off. But yeah, now I'm just going to add my double crochet rows. I ended up having a total of 20 rows from the armpit to where I want it to sit on my waist, and it's just normal double crochets. And once I try it on, I'm happy with the length. It sits at my waist, And once you are happy with your length, we're going to move on to the next step, and don't worry, it is very easy. We're just going to put 2 double crochets into each stitch. So chain 3, and we're going to place a double crochet into our first stitch, and then we're going to place another double crochet into the same stitch, and then into the next stitch we're going to place 2 double crochets, into the next stitch we're going to place 2 double crochets, and we're just going to be increasing in every stitch by putting 2 double crochets instead of 1, and we're going to do that for the entire row. Once you get to the end of the row, you can chain 3 and turn your work, and now you can start to see that ruffle that is formed by doing an increase in every stitch. So from now on, we're going to be placing 1 double crochet into each stitch for the next couple of rows. So we're not going to do any more increases. The increases are just for that row. So place 1 double crochet into that very first stitch, 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and just continue that for the whole row and for as many rows as you would like your length to be. I ended up doing 10 rows of normal double crochets, and now what we're going to do is make the edging nice and neat. So we're going to chain 1, and we're actually going to be putting single crochets along the front edges of our top. So because we have made a double crochet, we're going to place 2 single crochets into each of our double crochet. So I like to go into the stitch instead of in the gap. It just makes it look a little bit neater, and you're going to do that all the way around the top. Once you get to the corner at the top, you're going to place 1 single crochet, chain 1, and another single crochet in that same stitch, and that is just going to make it nice and neat for the corner. And then continue by placing 1 single crochet into each of the stitches around the neck and all the way down the other side of the front panel. When you get to the other corner of the neckline, you're going to place a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet again, just like we did on the other front corner. Once you get to the end of the other front panel, you're going to chain one and cut your yarn, and that will be the end of using our base color. And now we will be using our second color. This is optional. You can use the same color if you want it to be all monochrome, but I'm going to be using my second color, which is a light brown. We're going to attach our new color where we just cut off our yarn. So attach it there into that last single crochet stitch we made, and we're going to be doing a single crochet into every stitch along the bottom of our top, and that's just going to make it look really nice and neat and add a nice little subtle color. So I am carrying my yarn, my ends, with me. You can weave them in later if you want, but I just like to carry them as I go. And yeah, so just continue placing one single crochet into every stitch, and I will meet you back once we get to the end of the bottom row. So now that I've gotten to the end of the row, I'm going to place one single crochet, chain one, and one single crochet again because we are at the corner. And now we're going to place one single crochet into each stitch until we get to the part of our panel where we made our increases. So I will show you what I mean. I'm going to put a stitch marker here so I know when to stop, because once we get to this part we're going to actually make the ties. So now continue until you get to where you've put your stitch marker where our increases are. So you actually want to place stitch markers evenly so that you have 5 along the front panel of each side. So go ahead and do that before we continue the ties. Once you get to that stitch marker, we're going to begin by making our first tie, and we're going to chain 50. You can do more or less depending how long you want your tie to be, but I find 50 to be the perfect length. And then once you have 50, actually chain one more, so there's 51, and that extra chain will be for turning. And then we're going to put one single crochet into each of our chains into that back bump until we get to our stitch marker once again. Once you get back to your stitch marker, you can go ahead and remove it, and then we're going to place a single crochet into the very next stitch. So not the same stitch where we did our chain, but the one next to it. And that is how we're going to be making our ties. So go ahead and continue making a single crochet in each stitch until you get to your next stitch marker. And when you get to your next stitch marker, you're going to chain 51 again, single crochet into each back bump, and then single crochet in the stitch next to it. Continue that along the front panel, and then I will meet you at the corner. So here I am doing my last tie, and this is going to be the one by the neck. I'm just going to remove my stitch marker and place a single crochet into the very next stitch. And we're not going to do any single crochet, chain one, single crochet corner. We're just going to do a regular single crochet into each stitch around the neckline. And once we get to the other front panel where our next stitch marker will be, we will repeat the process of making our ties. Once you get to the very end of the row, we're going to chain 1 and then slip stitch into the very first single crochet we made, and then we're going to chain 1 and cut our yarn. Now that we have our border complete, we need to do the armholes by putting a row of single crochets, and we're going to attach our yarn in the center of the armpit area just so it's not noticeable. So go ahead, make a slip knot and attach your yarn in any stitch, doesn't matter, and then we're going to chain 1 and single crochet into the same stitch. And then we're just going to single crochet into each stitch. So here I'm at the corner and I'm just going to place a single crochet here, and then I'm going to place a single crochet into each of the stitches. Because of our chain row, we're going to have 2 single crochets into that 1 double crochet that we made. So just like we did on the front panels, place 2 single crochet, and then we're going to continue working normally 1 single crochet into each stitch. And then once you get to that other corner where the armpit is, you're going to place 2 single crochet again into that 1 double crochet, and then continue until you get to your starting stitch. Once you get to the end, you can then slip stitch into the first stitch we made, chain 1 and cut your yarn. And then you can go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other armhole. Once you finish the second armhole, you can now weave in your ends and your top is now finished. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and I hope it was easy to follow along. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or you're not sure about anything. I absolutely love this top. You can wear it 2 ways, with the bows in the front or the bows in the back, and have fun with lots of different colors. And yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this tutorial. Leave a like if you did, and let me know what color you are going to make yours. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.